and against this backdrop, of course, you have the two, the heads of the intelligence services, both of the United States and Russia, meeting in Turkey to discuss what I heard about 2 weeks ago was an overture from Moscow that they would like to have a ceasefire and to have talks begin. And I think that this may be a warning to Zelensky, who continues to hesitate and who heaps on other conditions for even wanting to have a ceasefire. That his infrastructure is in peril, and that it could be the beginning of a much larger campaign of a winter effort to take it back altogether. So I think that Moscow is sending warnings on the one hand, but also trying to give the United States and the allies a chance to convince Zelensky to sit down and start talking.
This comes, of course, as the G20 summit is currently underway in Bali. Do you think that this will affect the direction of talks in Bali?
No, I don't think so. Bali was for other reasons, and Ukraine was just an aside. It's having some effects upon Mr. Lavrov personally, but I think that there are other issues at Bali to discuss. Ukraine is, I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes right now with respect to Ukraine, and I think that the United States needs to get to Zelensky and tell him to start sitting down and having a discussion. Well, the thought from the Biden administration is, well, we'll leave it up to Zelensky. It's his call. But you have the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff who's sounding more like the Secretary of State by saying we should have discussions. And Blinken, who's a neoconservative, who really pushed this along with other neoconservatives in the Biden administration to not only overthrow Ukraine initially back in 2014, but also to push this agenda to isolate Russia, is quieter about all of this, and they would like to have Zelensky pursue regaining of any territories. But the Europeans, the United States, the American people, and now what we've seen in the elections, and the possibility of the House going Republican, the assistance may be drying up come January.
Coming back to these latest strikes, Moscow has repeatedly been saying that it specifically targets Ukrainian military and energy sites in order to degrade the country's armed forces. Does it look like that strategy has been effective so far?
I think it will be, because there is talk, and Zelensky is beginning to wonder, well, maybe he should consider all of this. It's having its impact. I think that if Zelensky doesn't finally do it, I think then we're going to see the winter offensive begin once it's cold enough. But if you're knocking out infrastructure and you're hitting military targets, that leaves him with not too much at hand to wage a continuous conflict. And the United States has already told him that they're having increasing difficulties in continuing the logistical support, and without actually going into a full-time military production at home. And there is no basis or national security imperative that the American people see to do that right now. Russia was never the threat to the United States or to Europe as NATO has been to Russia. So I think that people are really wondering, what is this thing all about? And I think that it's more of a geostrategic vendetta that the United States, particularly Biden and Victoria Nuland and company have, and the other neocons. When you have our own military chief calling for discussions, he sees that this is going nowhere. It doesn't accomplish anything, and there's no geostrategic advantage to it.
As you know, the previous barrage of Russian missile strikes on Ukraine came in response to last month's deadly bombing of the Crimean Bridge. So it makes you think what could have sparked these latest strikes, whether it is a tit for tat?
I think it's to encourage Mr. Zelensky to start listening to his mentors, to his handlers in the Biden administration, who are now suggesting that there be these discussions. I think it was very, very significant that the head of CIA and the Russian intelligence service came together and actually met. Now that's quite significant. That tells me that there's an interest to try to get this thing working and try to come to a conclusion rather than just to prolong this thing indefinitely. But Zelensky has got to come around. But it's also imperative that the Biden administration start putting that pressure on him very quietly but firmly, that this has got to stop. And people aren't going to continue supporting it at the level that they have. As it is, between now and January, what I think is going to happen, the Biden administration, because it's still predominantly all Democrat, is going to try to push another $50 billion military package through if they can get it. But that's going to be the last hurrah when it comes to that kind of funding further. It's money we don't even have, for that matter. But at the same time, where will the logistical support come? The fact that the chairman himself has intervened and made comments about continuing this unabated is significant, because he's signaling that even the United States does not have the logistical support and surplus that it used to have prior to the Ukrainian crisis.
Michael, to what extent could such strikes encourage or push Ukraine to really sit down for talks and try to negotiate a ceasefire with Russia?
Well, if you don't have any more water, you don't have any more food, and your electricity is all knocked out, and your supply lines are being interrupted, that should be a very telltale sign that the message is coming in loud and clear. And the Ukrainians are not going to be do not have the level of support. It's not continuous. If they think it's endless, it's not. And I think that and political messages are being sent from the United States to that effect. And the Biden administration needs to be a little more firm, as I pointed out, that on Zelensky to accept that and to come to terms to have a sit down with the Russians and work things out. Settle for a half a loaf rather than nothing.
We've been speaking to former Pentagon Senior Security Policy Analyst Michael Maloof. Michael, always a pleasure. Many thanks for sharing.